Number 10, fake footage. One of the key subjects in their new documentary is undoubtedly the intrusion of the media. It's the way that Harry and Meghan have tried to frame their situation. Harry and Meghan have tried to frame their situation as exactly what the late Princess Diana went through. In a clip showing various images of his mother being hounded by paparazzi, Harry says, "The pain and suffering of women marrying into this institution, this feeding frenzy, I was terrified. I didn't want history to repeat itself." But even this clip in the 1-minute trailer has already been criticized for using footage that is completely unrelated to the couple, all to try and paint a very specific picture of them trying to escape media attention. They also added in footage of Katie Price during her court appearance, a Harry Potter film premiere, and even a clip of Donald Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, being chased by photographers. But that's left a lot of people wondering, why don't they just use their own footage if the same thing has been happening to them? Critics have also pointed out that the images of a photographer on a balcony taking a picture of the couple while they're holding Archie is completely staged. It turns out that it was actually from a photo shoot with an accredited photographer during Harry and Meghan's visit to Cape Town. But the documentary tried to make out that this was a super intrusive moment of them being captured on camera. So obviously they've chosen to stick with the story that they just want to live a reclusive life away from it all, but they cannot help being dragged into the spotlight. Number 9, Meghan wanted to be single. Another idea that the documentary pushes is that the Duchess desperately wanted to remain single before she met Harry, and that she had a fantastic life without him before it was all ruined by the press. Meghan, who had already been married once before, said that she was intent on being single, and a friend is quoted as saying that she was set on having a single girl summer, and then came H. She said that their first private date was at the Soho House venue on Dean Street in London, which is a private members club for creatives. Harry turned up late and Meghan said she wondered if it was a demonstration of male ego, but he was apparently sweaty with nerves and immediately dispelled her fears on that front. Their first date lasted an hour and she said she thought Harry was great fun. She then asked him to dinner again, back at the club, which he told her was so American and forward. The camera then cuts to Meghan's friend and Suits co-star Abigail Spencer, who says she had a whole life before she met H. Another one of her friends says she had a core group of friends. Meg was very outgoing, super social, living in Toronto. She was very open-hearted. Meghan then says, "I lived in a great little residential community. I had my 2 dogs. It was great and low-key. Go for hikes and walks, go to set. I loved my job." So all in all, she wanted to reiterate that she really loved her life before she met Harry. Number 8, they both made sacrifices. During the first hour-long episode, which includes a sit-down interview with the couple, as well as clips from a video diary, Harry can be heard saying, "This is about duty and service. And I feel as though being a part of this family, it is my duty to uncover this exploitation and bribery that happens within our media. My job is to keep my family safe, but the nature of being born into this position and the level of hate that is being stirred up in the last 3 years, especially against my wife and my son, I'm generally concerned for the safety of my family." Harry describes his and Meghan's relationship as a great love story, saying that she sacrificed everything she ever knew, the freedom that she had, to join him in his world. And then pretty soon after that, he ended up sacrificing everything that he knew to join her in her world. So basically, Harry made it seem like they both gave up certain things to be with each other. Meghan gave up freedom and the ability to live her life how she wanted. And then obviously Harry ended up giving up his royal duties and separated from his family to be with her. Later on, he also brought up the situation with her father Thomas and said, "Of course, it's incredibly sad what happened. She had a father before this, and now she doesn't have a father. And I shouldered that, because if Meg wasn't with me, then her dad would still be her dad." Number 7, dealing with paparazzi. Meghan opened up about the fact that she essentially had no training for her new role as a member of the royal family. She had recounted the blunt warning that she got over the phone from Harry shortly after news broke of their relationship in 2016. She said that while she was living in Toronto and filming Suits, she encountered a pack of 9 or 10 paparazzi as she was leaving a florist. She said, "They were all sort of blocking the cars going, 'Hey, how you doing, Meghan?' And I said, 'Oh, thanks. Stay warm, guys.'" Then she said, "I remember Harry saying the next day, 'You can't talk to them.' And I was like, 'I'm just trying to be pleasant. I don't know what to do. I've never dealt with this before.' And he said, yes, but the UK media is saying you love it. You're smiling. You love it. The screen then cuts to images of tabloids that came out about Meghan, implying that she liked the attention from paparazzi. Essentially, the Duchess believes that the press took advantage of her naivete in order to generate negative headlines. Although at one point she also says, "It's so funny if I look back at it now, because now I know so much and I'm glad I didn't then, because I could just authentically be myself without so much preparation." Number 6, stories planted against them. Another massive allegation that Harry and Meghan made in their new documentary was that the royal family not only failed to support them during the media storm after their wedding, but at one point the palace even went as far as planting stories about them. In one clip, Harry says, "There's a hierarchy of the family. There's leaking, but there's also planting of stories. It's a dirty game," which is followed up by a clip of Meghan crying and saying, "I realize they're never going to protect you." The explosive news series claims that there was a war against Meghan to suit other people's agendas. So essentially, they're claiming that the royal family were behind a lot of the negative stories that were published about her. During her infamous sit-down with Oprah, Meghan made it clear that Kate had a role in a scandalous report that came out about her during the royal wedding, when there was a series of headlines saying that she left Kate in tears due to a disagreement they had about bridesmaid dresses. According to Meghan, the reverse happened, and it was actually Kate who made her cry. And then she says, "I would have never wanted that to come out about her ever, even though it happened." So she made it seem like Kate was the real instigator, but unlike her sister-in-law, she would never want a bad story to come out about her. But obviously she was just upset that Kate did not publicly denounce those headlines, even though she did apologize in private. Number 5, Meghan's family. The Duchess said that she believed the British press were hell-bent on trying to make her mother fodder for the tabloids. She said, "You just have my mom, who's classy and quiet, and then you have the other side of my family that is just acting differently." Meghan went on to discuss her half-sister Samantha Markle, who she said was suddenly everywhere when her relationship with Harry went public. Meghan was bewildered by her comments in the press and said, "I don't know your middle name, I don't know your birthday. You're telling these people you raised me and calling me Princess Pushy." She also addressed the incredibly sad series of events that led to the falling out with her father, Thomas Markle. Meghan claimed that she was unaware that her father was working with the media. She said she didn't know that he was selling staged pictures of himself to tabloids until a week out from the wedding. Some of these set-up pictures included him working out to get into shape and sitting in a cafe reading a book about the UK. It got to a certain point where her communications officer encouraged her to call her father to find out if it's true or not, because it could really be damaging. She ended up calling him and said, "Look, they're saying you're taking money from the tabloids for staged photos. Is it true?" Thomas denied the allegations, but Meghan said that she still didn't believe him. Number 4, questioning her relationship. As the paparazzi presence escalated in Meghan's life, the documentary reveals that at a certain point, her friends tried to make her second-guess her relationship with Harry. Meghan said, "When all of that started happening, my friends and the people in my life who love me and care about me are like, is he worth this? Like, we know that you're happy and we know that you love him, but is he worth this? Look at what's happening to your life." The camera then cuts to an interview with her former personal assistant Chantel Humphrey, who says, "Meg would go to the grocery store and get recognized, and people would say, 'Aren't you that girl from Suits?' Other than that, she had so much freedom. She had such a beautiful life before everything exploded." At one point, Meghan says that she went to the police to flag that she was being stalked by photographers, but she was told, "There's really nothing we can do because of who you're dating." But this changed when she received her first death threat, as she was given security detail to escort her to and from the Suits set. At this point, she says her inner circle began asking her a tough question of whether or not she should be continuing her relationship with Harry. For his part, Harry said, "Dating became a combination of car chases, anti-surveillance driving, and disguises, which isn't a particularly healthy way to start a relationship." Number 3, meeting the royals. The couple got candid about the reception that Meghan received from the royals when she met them for the first time. Reflecting on the time that Will and Kate came over for dinner, Meghan recalled looking a little too casual, walking around barefoot in ripped jeans. She said, "I was a hugger. I've always been a hugger. I didn't realize that is really jarring for a lot of Brits. I guess I'd start to understand very quickly that the formality on the outside carried through on the inside. There is a forward-facing way of being, and you close the door and go, we can relax now, but that formality carries over on both sides, and that was what was surprising to me. Meghan also spoke about meeting Harry's late grandmother, Queen Elizabeth. She said she didn't know she was going to meet her until moments before, and she remembers thinking Harry was joking when he asked her if she knew how to curtsy, to which she said it was so intense. In a more serious moment, Harry said that his family members were incredibly impressed by Meghan, although some had some obvious misgivings. Quote, some of them didn't quite know what to do with themselves. They were surprised. The fact I was dating an American actress was probably what clouded their judgment more than anything else at the beginning, thinking, this won't last. Meghan agreed and said that she felt the UK had a particular view of what being an actress meant, and that it was easy to typecast. Number 2, racism in the family. Harry revealed that certain members of the royal family questioned why Meghan should be protected from negative press coverage, reflecting on one headline declaring that his new girlfriend was almost straight out of Compton, which was a reference to her upbringing in Los Angeles. Harry says that the palace's direction to the couple was, don't say anything. He said, but what people need to understand is, as far as a lot of the family were concerned, everything that she was being put through, they had been put through as well. So it was almost like a rite of passage. And some of the members of the family were like, my wife had to go through that, so why should your girlfriend be treated any differently? Why should you get special treatment? Why should she be protected? And I said, the difference here is the race element. He went on to say that there is a huge level of unconscious bias in the royal family, and that it's actually no one's fault. But once it has been pointed out or identified within yourself, you need to make it right. Meghan's mother, Doria Ragland, also spoke about some of the news coverage, claiming that the press would take pictures of different parts of Skid Row, which is an impoverished area in LA, and say that that was where she lived and that was where Meghan was from. Doria also said that she initially warned her daughter that race was playing a significant role in how the tabloid media was responding to her relationship. And number 1, the royal engagement interview. In episode 3 of the new docuseries, Meghan scoffed at the memory of her and Harry's 2017 royal engagement interview. The episode begins with a flashback to the couple's memorable first TV appearance, which Meghan called an orchestrated reality show, revealing that from their adorable photo shoot to the sit-down chat, everything about that announcement was rehearsed. Meghan said from the get-go they weren't allowed to tell their true story when they were faced with questions about their relationship and her family. A flashback of the BBC interview then sees the Duchess looking extremely uncomfortable when she's asked whether or not Harry had met her father, Thomas Markle, who did not attend her 2018 wedding. So according to the new documentary, that interview was essentially fake and they weren't able to fully express themselves. It turns out there were plenty of details about their engagement that they had to keep to themselves. Harry confirmed that the proposal actually took place at home as Meghan was roasting a chicken, and says that he inadvertently tipped her off to something special when he brought home champagne. To set the scene, he set up electric candles in the courtyard of their Kensington Palace cottage, and of course, he got down on one knee.
Number 10. Marrying into the family. It's no secret that Princess Diana struggled with life being a part of the royal family, and having witnessed his mother's attempts to cope with life as a senior member of the royal family, Prince Harry understood Meghan's struggles with the institution after the two married. Both women effortlessly exude larger-than-life presences that captivate the public to the dismay of those around them, Harry said. Harry then added, first time that the penny dropped for her, Em and I spent the night in a room in Buckingham Palace after an event where every single member of the family had been, including the Queen. The next morning, while eating breakfast together, the couple spotted a UK newspaper where on the front page of the Telegraph was Meghan. I went, oh my god, Meghan recalls. She was like, but it's not my fault. And I said, I know, and my mum felt the same way, Harry said. The Duke explains that jealousy is a common phenomenon in the family that relies on news coverage in order to do their work. The issue is when someone who's marrying in, who should be a supporting act, is then stealing the limelight or is doing the job better than the person who was born to do this, that upsets people. It shifts the balance because you've been led to believe that the only way that your charities can succeed and the only way that your reputation can be grown or improved is if you're on the front page of those newspapers. news. But the media are the ones who choose who to put on the front page. Number 9. Treatment of the press. Prince Harry said in an interview with Oprah Winfrey that the media's mistreatment of his wife painfully reminded of him how the press treated Diana. My biggest concern was history repeating itself, and I've said that before on numerous occasions very publicly, Harry said. What I was seeing was history repeating itself, more perhaps or far more dangerously, because then you add race in and social media in. And what I'm talking about, history repeating itself, I'm talking about my mother. He talked about feeling trapped and helpless in the institution of the royal family. The couple said they asked for help, both together and separately, on their struggles with mental health and combating racist rhetoric from tabloids, but said they didn't receive support. When you can see something happening in the same kind of way as my mother's story, anybody would ask for help. Ask the system of which you are a part of, especially when you know there's a relationship there. They can share some truth or call the dogs off or whatever you want to call it, but they didn't, Harry said. Number 8. Struggling with mental health. In their Oprah interview, Meghan says she was told she couldn't get help despite having thoughts about ending her life, but that royals have seen therapists before. Princess Diana opened up about her experience with postpartum depression in an interview with BBC in 1995. She told the network she received a great deal of treatment, and she briefly touched on the royals family response. Well, maybe I was the first person ever to be in this family who ever had depression or was ever openly tearful. And obviously that was daunting, because if you've never seen it before, how do you support it? However, Meghan said she spoke with a senior member of the royal institution about seeking help for mental health and was turned away. I said that I've never felt this way before and I need to go somewhere, and I was told that I couldn't, that it wouldn't be good for the institution. The Duchess of Sussex also tried to get help via the institution's human resources department. Although she received some sympathy, representatives of the institution told her there was nothing they could do for her. I remember this conversation like it was yesterday, because they said, "My heart goes out to you because I see how bad it is, but there's nothing we can do to protect you because you're not a paid employee of the institution." Many people doubted that Meghan was turned away for help as Diana received it when she asked for it, but Harry and her insist that they were denied help. Number 7. Royal tours. Meghan and Harry's and Princess Diana and Prince Charles's royal tours of Australia were the turning point in their lives. In the tell-all interview with Oprah, Harry said, "My grandmother has been amazing throughout, you know, my father, my brother Kate, and all the rest of the family, they were supportive. They were really welcoming, but it changed after the Australia tour. That's when we announced we were pregnant with Archie. It was our first tour," Meghan added. "And it was the first time that the family got to see how incredible she is at her job," Prince Harry continued, adding that it reminded him of the glowing public reception his mother received during her tour of Australia. Princess Diana and Prince Charles's first tour of Australia similarly shed light on how popular the new royal had become abroad, as she was met with many adoring fans. "We had a 6-week tour, 4 weeks in Australia and 2 weeks in New Zealand, and by the end, when we flew back to New Zealand, I was a different person. I realized the sense of duty, the level of intensity of interest, and the demanding role I now find myself in," Diana said. Number 6. Being driven away by the media. Harry also opened up about being scared for the future of his wife, sharing his concern at the time and referring to the paparazzi's harassment that ultimately resulted in the tragic death of Princess Diana. "I was terrified of her being driven away by the media," Harry admitted to the viewers in their documentary. He previously talked about it during his Apple TV Plus series, revealing that his biggest regret is not making more of a stance earlier on in my relationship with my wife. History was repeating itself. My mother was chased to her death. Number 5. Both entered marriages as non-royals. Before announcing her engagement to Prince Harry and joining the royal family, Meghan was an actress and ran her own lifestyle blog. However, not only did she enter a relationship with Prince Harry as a non-royal, she claims that she knew very little about the royal family as a whole or what being a working royal actually entailed. "I didn't grow up knowing much about the royal family. It wasn't something that was a part of the conversation at home. It wasn't something we followed," she told Oprah in March 2021. Now, Princess Diana grew up in an aristocratic family and had more knowledge of the royal family, but revealed that she had no idea what joining the royal family would actually entail and the support she would or wouldn't have. Number 4. They share the same qualities. It's said that men really do tend to look for partners with similar traits and values as their mothers. A personality test given to the mothers and wives or girlfriends of British men found that they tend to have a lot in common. Men whose mothers have strong values, such as respecting others' opinions and being kind, appear to look for the same thing in their other half, and it seems like Harry is no exception to this. In the documentary Harry and Meghan, Harry shares his love for his mother and also expresses that some of the things he loves most about his wife are qualities she shares with the late Princess Diana. In the documentary, Harry said, "So much of what Meghan is and how she is so similar to my mom. She has the same compassion, the same empathy, the same confidence. She has this warmth about her." Now, some people might find this sweet, while others may find it creepy. Which one do you think it is? Number 3. The attention. Princess Diana spoke about how isolating the attention became, especially from the media. She said, "The most daunting aspect was the media's attention because my husband and I, we were told when we got engaged that the media would go quietly, and it didn't. And then when we were married, they said it would go quietly, and it didn't." The princess also spoke about the part the media attention played in the dissolution of her marriage, saying, "The pressure on us both as a couple with the media was phenomenal and misunderstood by a great many people. There were 3 of us in the marriage, and the pressure of the media was another factor, so the two together were very difficult." In Harry and Meghan, the couple spoke about the intense media pressure they had faced, and Harry likened Meghan's treatment to that his mother had endured. "To see another woman in my life who I loved go through this feeding frenzy, it's hard. It's basically the hunter versus the prey," he said. Now, in 2016, Harry released a statement confirming he was dating Meghan, but slammed the press coverage surrounding her and their relationship. The couple later filed multiple lawsuits against the British press and halted cooperation with the tabloids. "I asked for calm from the British tabloids once as a boyfriend, once as a husband, and once as a father." He added that the primary reason for them leaving their royal roles was due to a lack of support and understanding from both the media and the royal family. Number 2. Royal exit to Princess Diana's death. While being interviewed by ITV, Harry said the reason why he had a royal exit with Meghan was due to him fearing that Meghan would end up like his mother if they stayed with the royals any longer. He said, "I do not want to be a single dad. I never want to be in that position. I never want to be in that position," referring to his mother's death in 1997 following a car crash. He reiterated, "I don't want history to repeat itself. I do not want to be a single dad, and I certainly don't want my children to have life without a mother or father." Harry has 2 children who he shares with Meghan, Archie and Lily. In 2020, they announced their plans to step away from their roles in the royal family, which made headlines. 1 year later, they confirmed that the decision was made permanent and they moved to California. They did this so they could get away from everyone and everything, as it was affecting their lives so much they couldn't take it. And number 1, history repeating itself. The docuseries premiere opens with Harry speaking about still feeling haunted by the memories of feeling helpless when his mother struggled with the tabloid media. "I always wanted to be normal as opposed to being Prince Harry, just being Harry," he says. "It was a puzzling life, and unfortunately, when I think about my mom, the first thing that comes to mind is always the same one, over and over again. Strapped in the car, seatbelt across, my brother in the car as well, and my mother driving and being chased by 3, 4, 5 mopeds with paparazzi on them. One of the feelings that comes up is helplessness, and that happened every single day until she died." After reflecting on his mother's tragic death and his pain-driven view of the UK media in the first episode, Harry talks about how similarities between his childhood and his adult life had rampantly crept up, especially in his relationship with his now wife Meghan. "We got followed, photographed, chased, harassed. The clicking of cameras and the flashes of the cameras makes my blood boil. It makes me angry and takes me back to what happened to my mom and what I experienced as a kid. Not just traditional media, but also social media platforms as well. I felt completely helpless," he said.
Number 10, the Queen was influenced. Palace courtiers have dismissed suggestions made by Harry that the Queen was influenced by her aides when she decided that he was out as a working royal. In the second half of his Netflix series, Harry claimed that his grandmother was swayed by the opinions of others, especially during the Sandringham Summit in January of 2020, which was made to determine the future of Harry and Meghan as royals. He said, "You have to understand that from a family's perspective, especially from hers, there are ways of doing things, and her ultimate mission, goal/responsibility is the institution. people are around her are telling her that proposal or these two are doing X, Y, and Z is going to be seen as an attack on the institution. Then she's going to go on the advice that she's been given. But courtiers within the palace have cast doubt on his version of events, with those close to the situation claiming that at the time the Queen was strong and sharp enough to make the decision herself. One inside source told The Times, "It's outrageous. Harry never wanted to admit to himself that it was the Queen who said, 'No, you're out.' He couldn't fathom that he wasn't the cheeky chappy who was going to sweet-talk Grandma into getting what he wanted." Another source said that he had deliberately shifted the narrative about his grandmother. When he wasn't getting the support from her that he wanted, he represented her as passive, someone who only sat in the corner and listened. Number 9, the truth about Meghan's niece. Meghan claimed her half-sister was suddenly everywhere when her relationship with Harry went public. She said that she was shocked by her comments in the press and said, "I don't know your middle name. I don't know your birthday. You're telling these people you raised me and calling me Princess Pushy." Samantha has since appeared on Sunrise this morning, and she certainly did not hold back her opinions about her sister. She said, "First of all, I will not call it a documentary. When I was trying to appropriately name it, it was a floppymentary. It is so much rhetoric at this point and so many lies have been thrown out there, debunked, and yet there is still repeated need to push this narrative. It is ridiculous. It borders on comedy. It's that bad." The Sunrise host then asked her how she felt about the comments made about her specifically in the 3rd episode of the series by both Meghan and her biological daughter Ashley Hale. In response, Samantha said that Meghan lied about the entire situation and that Ashley not getting invited to the wedding was not the royal family's decision, it was Meghan's. She said, "No, I knew she was not at the wedding and it kind of saddened me, but it is surprising to hear that there was a narrative spun that made Ashley feel like she was not invited because of something having to do with me." So basically, she didn't feel that the royal family had instructed Meghan not to invite her niece, a claim that has now been debunked by multiple sources. Number 8, stories planted against them. One of the biggest accusations leveled against Prince William was that he and his office had been planting negative stories about the Sussexes. Harry spoke of the dirty game that was played by the royal communications teams and the media, where they would trade damaging stories about one family member in exchange for a negative story about another one being dropped. He said, "There's leaking, but there's also planting of stories. So if the comms team want to be able to remove a negative story about their principal, they will trade and give you something about someone else's principal." He went on to say, "To see my brother's office copy the very thing that we promised the two of us would never do, that was heartbreaking. I would far rather get destroyed in the press than play along with this game or this business of trading." Harry's claim that stories were leaked and planted by royal comms teams to remove a negative story about their principal really comes and goes without much context. In fact, a lot of the things that Harry has been saying on this point seems to be referring to what he witnessed as a child with his father's office. But then he says that he saw William's office do the very same thing without explaining why he thinks this or what stories he believes were planted or traded. Number 7, the renovation controversy. Meghan and Harry joked that their first royal home was too small and not what anyone would expect from a property in palace grounds. Before they got married, the couple arrived in Sandringham Cottage, which is a grace and favour home in the grounds of Kensington Palace. Then they later moved to Frogmore Cottage in Home Park, Windsor. But Meghan and Harry lament the reality of living at the cottage, which they says sounds like a palace, but it really wasn't. Harry said, "As far as people were concerned, we were living in a palace, and we were in a cottage on the palace grounds." Meghan said, "Kensington Palace sounds very regal, of course it does. It says palace in the name, but Nottingham Cottage was so small." Complained about how it had very low ceilings, and insisted that Harry would often bump his head because of them. This was one of the worst parts of the docuseries, as they tried their best to make the property seem undesirable. Of course, they did not address the renovation controversy at all. In fact, they subtly justified it. If you didn't know, they were accused of using exorbitant amounts of taxpayer funds to renovate the home, which was a little over $3 million. They eventually repaid it all, but only after being criticized in the name of public interest. Number 6, claims of jealousy. Amidst the list of bombshell accusations in the second installment of the series, viewers could not help questioning something that Harry said about his wife. He truly believed that there was some kind of jealousy from other royals towards Meghan, given the amount of media attention that she was receiving. He said the issue is when someone who's marrying in, who should be a supporting act, is then stealing the limelight or doing the job better than the person who was born to do this, that upsets people. It upsets the balance. Because you've been led to believe that the only way your charities can succeed and your mission can grow is if you are on the front pages of those newspapers. Harry then gave an example, saying that the first time the penny dropped was when he and Meghan were at Buckingham Palace after a joint event with every senior member of the royal family. That morning, every paper had Meghan front and center, with Kate Middleton on the side. According to the couple, it was at this point that they started being targeted by the monarchy that wanted them to fail because they stole the limelight. But this is represented with no evidence. In fact, the idea is mostly proposed by friends or contributors that were interviewed, which is a device that somehow leaves you feeling that the couple weren't quite prepared to say certain things themselves, but were quite happy for others to do so. Number 5, excluded from the family. The couple spoke about the moment they saw the rest of the family at Westminster Abbey for the Commonwealth service. This was apparently the first time they saw each other in person since announcing their decision to step back from their duties. And Harry said the meeting both looked and felt cold. He said, "I felt really distant from the rest of my family," which is interesting because so much of how they operate is what it looks like, not what it feels like. But it looked cold and it also felt cold. After discussing the death of his grandfather, Prince Philip, Harry brought up the time that he flew back to the UK to attend his funeral and admitted that it was hard going back for the first time since he and Meghan had left the family. It was difficult talking to his father and brother because they very much focus on the same misinterpretation of the whole situation. He said, "None of us wanted to talk about it at my grandfather's funeral, but we did. I've had to make peace with the fact that we're probably never going to get a genuine apology or a genuine accountability. My wife and I, we're moving on, we're focused on what's coming next." So Harry believes that when he returned to the UK, his family were already giving him the cold shoulder. And it was at this moment that he realized they would never apologize for what they've apparently done. Number 4, the Sandringham Summit. In the 5th episode of the series, Harry talks about a meeting that took place within the family to discuss the couple's decision to break away. He claimed that the reason that Meghan wasn't there was because there were arrangements made to ensure that she was not in the room at the time. Harry said, "It was terrifying to have my brothers scream and shout at me, and my father say things that simply weren't true, and my grandmother sit quietly in the corner and sort of take it all in." He described that meeting as hard and said it ended without a solid plan of action. He said, "The saddest part of it was the wedge created between myself and my brother, so that now he's on the institution side." The claim that Prince William screamed and shouted at Harry during the so-called Sandringham Summit, discussing their future, was an uncomfortable one, but it does actually make sense given the heated feelings on all sides at the time. But his suggestion that his father said things that were not true in that same meeting is largely meaningless, because he provides no context or further explanation as to what he could have been lying about. It seems as though the docuseries is deliberately filled with lots of ambiguity, as Harry and Meghan make a lot of assertions but offer very little facts to back them up. Number 3, Meghan praised by a crew member. Something that didn't sit right with a lot of viewers was a clip about the Freedom Flight, when Meghan was leaving the UK for good after her final royal appearance, which was attending the Commonwealth Day service at Westminster Abbey. Apparently, one of the crew members on the flight came up to her and thanked her for her royal service, which made her very emotional. She recalled the moment saying, "I get on the plane and not the pilot but whoever was overseeing the crew, he came and he knelt next to my seat and took his hat off. I just remember looking at him and he goes, 'We appreciate everything you did for our country.'" Meghan explained that it was the first time someone had recognized the sacrifice that she made. She said, "Not for my own country, for this country. It's not mine." And that's the piece that's so triggering, because you go and it still wasn't good enough and you still don't fit in. According to Meghan, once she landed in Canada, she collapsed in the arms of one of the security guards and started crying, saying, "I tried so hard," which the security guard apparently says, "I know you did, ma'am." The added drama might have been necessary for something on Netflix, but a lot of this seems more like the plot of one of their TV shows rather than a legitimate fact-based documentary. Number 2, attacked by the media. The documentary was loaded with negative headlines about Meghan, insinuating that this is what pushed them to the breaking point. Harry said the toll was visible, the emotional toll that it was having on both of us, but especially my wife. We're going to have to change this for our own sake. He claimed that after their 2018 wedding, that was when the press really started to turn on them. Over 6-hour-long episodes, Harry and Meghan made it clear that they were crushed by the notoriously toxic tabloids, who were so egregiously racist and sexist in covering her. But it was the palace's lack of support that really broke them. The firm was unwilling to bend on their advantageous agreement with the royal press. In fact, since the docuseries aired, more and more people have been calling out the media for attacking Meghan. Top Gear's Jeremy Clarkson wrote a column in The Sun, which has provoked a mass outcry online, with social media users labeling it vile and horrific. In an article for the paper, Clarkson wrote that he loathed Meghan on a cellular level, and described a detailed depiction of her getting publicly shamed. As a result, his comments have drawn widespread condemnation. Number 1, their plans were ruined. In terms of the plan to give up their royal duties, Harry said that he initially asked for a half-in, half-out arrangement, where he and Meghan would have their own jobs but would still work in support of the Queen. The couple then described creating a plan that they hoped would bring them both safety and peace of mind. They talked about relocating to New Zealand or South Africa before they ultimately settled on Canada. In 2019, Harry claimed that the palace signed off on them moving to South Africa, which is something that the officers of his father, his brother, his grandmother knew about. He said no one else knew. It was very much an internal document. Then it was leaked to the Times newspaper, and the whole plan was then scrapped. After this, he spoke to Charles over the phone about the possibility of them moving to Canada, and he was told to put the request in writing. Only later did they find out that the tabloids knew about their proposal, as the emails to his father had somehow been leaked. According to Harry, once their Canada plans became a public debate, it was never going to happen. Meghan was a little more bold in making the accusation. She said, his dad said put it in writing, and he did. And it was just 5 days later that it was on the front page of a newspaper. So they made no effort to hide that they clearly believed the family was well and truly behind the leak. Number 10, Freedom Flight. The final episode of the Netflix series begins with a video note taken by Harry as the couple flew away from Canada to LA, having completed their royal engagements. Harry said, "We are on the Freedom Flight, and I wonder what would have happened to us had we not got out when we did." Meghan also recalled a comment made to her by a plane crew member as she was leaving the UK for good after her final royal appearance on their farewell tour. She said that while she was on the flight, a crew member thanked her for her royal service, which made her emotional. She was traveling to be reunited with their son Archie, while Harry remained in the UK to finalize the details following the Megxit. Meghan said, "I get on the plane and not the pilot, but whoever was overseeing the crew, he came and he knelt next to my seat and took his hat off. I just remember looking at him and he goes, 'We appreciate everything you did for this country.'" The Duchess explained that this was the first time someone recognized the sacrifice that she had made. She said, "Not for my own country, for this country. It's not mine." And that's the piece that's so triggering, because you go, and it still wasn't good enough and you still don't fit in. According to Meghan, once she landed in Canada, she collapsed in the arms of one of Harry's security guards and started crying. Quote, "I was like, I tried so hard," and he goes, "I know you did. I know you did, ma'am." So it was apparently a very emotional moment for her. Number 9, William leaked stories. In the latest episodes, Harry accused William's office of briefing against him by leaking negative stories about him and his wife Meghan to the media. He spoke about the dirty game played by the royal communications teams and the media, where they would trade damaging stories about one another in exchange for a negative story about another family member being dropped. Harry then explained that there's leaking, but there's also planting of stories. So if the communications team want to be able to remove a negative story about their principal, they will trade and give you something about someone else's principal. Apparently, he and his brother had agreed to stop this practice after seeing how it happened with their father's office during their breakdown in his marriage to their mother, the late Princess Diana. But now he claims that his brother went back on this agreement. Quote, "To see my brother's office copy the very same thing that we promised the two of us would never ever do, that was heartbreaking. I would far rather get destroyed in the press than play along with this game, or this business of trading." That's a pretty big accusation to swing against William, to insinuate that he or his people fed the press negative stories on Meghan, all to try and get the heat off someone else. Whether or not that was something that actually happened is one of the biggest allegations made in this documentary, and it would likely do the opposite of repairing the rift between them. Number 8, his brother turned against him. In the 5th episode of the series, the couple recounts a family meeting that took place to discuss their decision to reduce reduce their roles as working members of the royal family. Harry claimed that there were arrangements made to ensure that Meghan was not in the room and left out of the discussion. He said, "It was terrifying to have my brother scream and shout at me, and my father say things that simply weren't true, and my grandmother quietly sit there and sort of take it all in." He described the meeting as hard and said that it ended without a solid plan of action. He went on to say, "The saddest part of it was the wedge created between myself and my brother, so that he is now on the institution side. The allegations that Harry has now leveled at William, who is heir to the throne, will clearly cause the most headaches at the palace." It also points out the deterioration of what was once a close bond between the two brothers. Throughout their lives, the younger generation of the royal family has tried to find a balance between the fast-changing society that we have now and the rigid institution that is the monarchy. The tension can really be seen when you look at how William and Harry are living now. One leads a life of traditional duty, charity work, and military pageantry, while the other resides outside of LA and seems to be a bit more interested in Hollywood at the moment than anything else. Number 7, they were jealous of Meghan. In the second installment of the series, Harry hinted that there was some kind of jealousy from other royals towards Meghan, given the amount of media attention that she was receiving. He said, "The issue is when someone who's marrying in, who should be a supporting act, is then stealing the limelight or is doing the job better than the person who was born to do this, that upsets people. It upsets the balance, because you have been led to believe that the only way your charities can succeed and your mission can grow is if you are on the front pages of those newspapers." He then gave an example, saying that the first time the penny dropped was when he and Meghan were at Buckingham Palace after a joint event with every senior member of the royal family. That morning, every paper had Meghan on the front and center, with Kate Middleton on the side. He went on to explain Meghan's name would appear on the front page of the Telegraph, and then recalled her saying, "But it's not my fault," to which he said, "I know, and my mum felt the same way." According to Harry, at this point, the press coverage of his wife started becoming more and more negative, as it became apparent that she was taking attention away from other members of the family. Number 6, calling the royal family cold. When Meghan and Harry saw the royal family for the first time since announcing their decision to step back, Harry said it looked and felt a bit cold. The couple were at Westminster Abbey for the Commonwealth service, and he said, "I felt really distant from the rest of my family," which is interesting because so much of how they operate is what it looks like and not what it feels like. But it looked cold, and it also felt cold. After discussing the death of his grandfather, the Duke of Edinburgh, Harry also spoke about the time that he flew back to the UK to attend Prince Philip's funeral. He admitted that it was hard going back for the first time since he and Meghan left the royal family, and it was difficult talking to his father and brother, who very much focused on the same misinterpretation of the whole situation. He said, "None of us wanted to talk about it at my grandfather's funeral, but we did. I've had to make peace with the fact that we're probably never going to get genuine accountability or genuine apology. My wife and I were moving on, we're focused on what's coming next." Sadly though, despite admitting that yes, it was hard, Harry also confessed that he missed the family gatherings at certain times of the year and seeing his friends. He explained that he's lost certain friends now, which just speaks to how much he has really sacrificed in the process of breaking away from his family. Number 5, Frogmore Cottage was too small. Something that really didn't sit right with viewers was when Meghan and Harry joked that their first royal home was too small and not what anyone would expect from a property in palace grounds. The couple lived in Sandringham Cottage, a grace and favour home in the grounds of Kensington Palace, prior to getting married in May of 2018. They then moved to Frogmore Cottage in Home Park, Windsor. They talk about this in episode 4, lamenting the reality of living at Kensington Palace, which sounds like a palace, but according to them, it wasn't. Harry says, "As far as people were concerned, we were living in a palace, and we were in a cottage on the palace grounds." Meghan said, "Kensington Palace sounds very regal. Of course it does. It says palace in the name, but Nottingham Cottage was so small." Harry then chimes in and says, "The whole thing's on a slight lean. Really low ceilings. I don't know who was there before. They must have been very short." Meghan then said that he would just hit his head constantly in that place because he's so tall. They also described the moment that Oprah Winfrey visited them at the cottage, looked around and said, "No one would ever believe it." So clearly they were not happy at all with the property, and perhaps that's when the couple decided to start their $3 million renovation. Number 4, excluding her half-sister. One of the biggest reasons that Meghan has been getting backlash for the docuseries is what she said about her half-sister Samantha Markle, who she claims was suddenly everywhere when her relationship with Harry went public. Meghan was bewildered by her comments in the press and said, "I don't know your middle name, I don't know your birthday. You're telling these people you raised me and calling me Princess Pushy." In the 3rd episode of the series, the audience is also introduced to Ashley Hale, Meghan's niece and the daughter of Samantha Markle. The Duchess then recalls her heartbreak at being told by the firm that Ashley couldn't come to her wedding to Prince Harry because it would would look bad that she was invited but Samantha wasn't. But since that revelation was made public, anonymous sources at the palace have come out denying the claims. One told Sunday Times, "That just didn't happen. We never gave any advice, steer, or guidance on who of her family or friends should or shouldn't come." They further explained that Meghan wanted to shield Ashley from the onslaught of media attention and said that it was her who decided not to invite her niece. Quote, "It was not a question she put to us. We would never tell her not to invite her own niece, and we would never get involved in any management of personal relationships." Another royal insider chimed in and said, "Meghan didn't want the media to know about Ashley. No one on earth would have said, 'Don't invite family to the wedding.' That's a complete and utter lie." Number 3, they were sabotaged. The couple spoke about the difficulties they encountered when they made their decision to quit as working members of the royal family. Harry said that he initially asked for a half-in, half-out arrangement, where he and Meghan would have their own jobs but would still work in support of the Queen. But during a family meeting about the topic, he said it became very clear very quickly that the goal was not up for discussion or debate. The couple then described creating a plan that they hoped would bring them both safety and peace of mind. They talked about relocating to New Zealand or South Africa before they ultimately settled on Canada. In 2019, Harry claimed that the palace signed off on them moving to South Africa, which is something that the officers of his father, his brother, and his grandmother knew about. He said no one else knew. It was all very much an internal document. Then it was leaked to the Times newspaper, and the whole plan was then scrapped. After this, Harry then spoke to his father over the phone about the possibility of them moving to Canada, to which Charles said, "Can you put that in writing?" So he did. Only after that did they find out that the tabloids knew about their proposal, as the emails to his father had somehow been leaked. Meghan summed up the accusation saying, "His dad said put it in writing, and he did. And it was just 5 days later that it was on the front page of a newspaper." So the Sussexes are basically saying that their plans were deliberately ruined by the family. Number 2, blocked from seeing the Queen. Harry said his grandmother, the Queen, was aware that they were having difficulties with their public roles and made plans to discuss it in early January 2020 when he was set to return to Britain. Apparently, he spoke to his grandmother and arranged to meet her with Meghan as they were reaching their decision to quit the family. Quote, "She knew that we were finding things hard. I'd spoken to her many times about it." But as the meeting approached, Meghan said they received a message from an aide telling them that they were not allowed to see the monarch. Apparently, when they called, Her Majesty said, "I've actually been told that I'm busy all week." Meghan then chimed in and said, "I remember looking at H and going, my gosh, this is when a family and a family business are in direct conflict because they're blocking you from seeing the Queen. But really, what they're doing is blocking a grandson from seeing his grandmother." Harry also accused Prince William's office of putting out a joint statement on behalf of both of them without his permission, after a newspaper article was published claiming William's bullying was one of the reasons he and Meghan had wanted to give up their royal titles. He said, "No one asked me permission to put my name into a statement like that. Within 4 hours, they were happy to lie to protect my brother, and yet for 3 years, they were never willing to tell the truth to protect us." And coming in at number 1, war on the press. The 5th episode begins with the couple's continued war with the news media and mentions their over-the-top efforts to dodge paparazzi in 2019 while they were spending time away from the royals at Christmas. At this point, the documentary displays the negative headlines about Meghan, which was said to have pushed the couple to a breaking point. Harry said the toll was visible, the emotional toll that it was having on both of us, but especially my wife. "We're going to have to change this for our own sake." The Duchess explained how she felt about the negative press attention, saying, "I realized that I wasn't being thrown to the wolves, I was being fed to the wolves." In the first part of the series, the couple accused the media of destroying them before they left the UK, and at one point Harry said, "Being part of this family, it is my duty to uncover this exploitation and bribery that happens within our media." He went on to say, "All royal news goes through the filter of newspapers within the royal rota, most of which, apart from the Telegraph, happen to be tabloids. It all comes down to control. It's like, this family is ours to exploit. Their trauma is our story and our narrative to control." For her part, Meghan said, "Truth be told, no matter how hard I tried, no matter how good I was, no matter what I did, they were still going to find a way to destroy me." So clearly, the couple have placed a large part of the blame for their problems on the press. Number 10, Howard Stern. The radio host slammed the couple and labeled them as whiny B-words after he said that he had to sit through the painful first 3 episodes of their Netflix series. Stern said, "I wouldn't watch it, but my wife wants to watch it. You know, we have shows we watch, but they come off like such whiny B-words. I gotta tell you, man, I just don't get it." He went on to say that he understands that Prince Harry is angry at the monarchy for what happened with his mother. Then he says, "But Jesus Christ, when those two start whining about where, and they don't like me, and Meghan wants to be beloved in this country, but man, oh man, it's like the Kardashians except boring." Stern then brought up the privacy issue and said, "It's just weird to watch two people who keep screaming, 'We want our privacy. We wanted the press to leave us alone.' And then what is there special that they put out on Netflix showing you them and their kids and their life?" Funnily enough, this is one of the main criticisms that the couple seem to be getting. So much so that they have now had to release a statement through their press secretary saying that they never wanted privacy in the first place, claiming that very narrative was intended to trap them into silence. So apparently, their decision to step back never had anything to do with wanting to be out of the spotlight. Number 9, Kathy Griffin. The comedian made it clear that she was not exactly impressed by the way Meghan and Harry described the way they met in the new Netflix series. Kathy said, "They met on freaking Instagram. Prince Harry was just flipping through Instagram looking for a hot brunette like every other guy in LA." Then she said something pretty shocking. She jokingly compared Harry to Armie Hammer, who has recently been embroiled in allegations. Kathy said, "I'm disappointed. I thought this was going to be a great love story. Prince Harry's like Armie freaking Hammer. What if Prince Harry's the new House of Hammer?" Although she insisted that she wasn't trashing the couple, only questioning them, she went on to criticize their attitude and the British monarchy altogether. Kathy thinks that the Sussexes are acting like they can do so much good in the world, but went on to ask, when's the last time a royal did anything that helped the world? Quote, "Meghan kinda acts like she was never on Deal or No Deal. And when I say she kinda acts like, I mean they don't acknowledge it at all, which is hilarious to me. You don't think it's funny when Meghan acts like she doesn't know what hair and makeup is?" So obviously she wasn't buying Meghan's claim that she had no guidance whatsoever when she entered the royal family. Number 8, Sharon Osbourne. Following the release of the latest trailer for the second part of their Netflix docuseries, the former talk show host lashed out at Harry and Meghan, telling them to move on and get a life. Sharon appeared on Piers Morgan Uncensored, where she weighed in on their controversial new project, saying, "It was all very distasteful, Piers. I was totally bored by the whining. The whining, the whining. It is just so horribly disrespectful and just a whine fest. I mean, is the book going to be the same thing? Are there going to be no positive points?" Sharon even went on to accuse the couple of having a deal with Netflix before they stepped down from royal duties. She said, "And that whole thing of him filming himself on the Freedom Flight, they must have had that deal with Netflix done months before they ever left. So the whole thing was a setup. Unless you had a deal, why would you have done that? Filming yourself on the plane and all of that, doing a video diary." Sharon felt that the series was a good opportunity for them to talk about their charity, but instead they chose to focus on how mistreated they were by the public, the press, and the royal family. She summed it all up by saying, "And do you know what? You have a great life. You have a beautiful family, and you are so much in love. Move on, get a life, and move on." Number 7, Bethany Frankel. The Real Housewives of New York City star posted a TikTok review of the controversial new series after the first 3 episodes dropped on December the 8th. She said, "It didn't hold my attention. It seemed like they really wanted to be humanized. They wanted us to know that they are real human beings. We believe that you are really in love, and we believe that you're really human beings." Frankel went on to claim that Meghan just wanted to hang out with major celebrities and gain notoriety from the famous family, and that was the real motivation behind her moving to California. She said, "I feel like this entire documentary was about how famous we are. It was relentless. If you are being trolled by the media, the royal family gave you the advice to say nothing because that's the advice that most very famous people are given. If you add gasoline to a fire, the fire blows up even bigger." It felt like Meghan in particular just kept wanting to tell us more. The reality star felt that the show was a major cash grab and something that Meghan and Harry decided to do because they were already causing chaos by leaving the family. Frankel also said they really wanted to push the Princess Diana aspect, the comparison, and I feel like it achieves the opposite result because Diana was there 5, 6, 7 times longer than Meghan and entered the monarchy when she was just 19. It's just not the same comparison. Number 6, Piers Morgan. Not long after Netflix released the second trailer, the presenter fired a series of tweets launching a new attack on Harry and Meghan. He wrote, "King Charles needs to strip these 2 poisonous rats of all remaining titles and ties to the royal family, and needs to do it fast before they destroy the monarchy." Piers also targeted Netflix directly after they promoted the second part of the series. He wrote, "It's not a global event, it's a weekly trashing of their families." He then made another post saying, "Imagine being the royal family, still grieving the loss of your great matriarch just a few weeks ago, and now having to endure 2 relatives who deserted the royal duty and Britain for riches in America, publicly trashing you as racist and liars after a week. It's so disgusting." Earlier this week, Piers also compared the series to Keeping Up with the Kardashians and labeled it boring. But by far the point that he's taken the most issue with was that Meghan was compared to Princess Diana, which he called sickening and said, "Having known both women, I can say with absolute certainty they have nothing in common whatsoever. What he's talking about is the moment that Harry said, "So much of what Meghan is and how she is so similar to my mom. She has the same compassion, the same empathy. She has the same confidence. She has this warmth about her." And later on he says, "The pain and suffering of women marrying into this institution, this feeding frenzy, I was terrified and I didn't want history to repeat itself." Number 5, Meghan Kelly. The former Fox News presenter appeared on GB News and criticized Meghan Markle in particular for her apparent history of lies. Kelly compared the narrative of the documentary to Meghan's past statements and said, "Look at how she lied about the cast of The Lion King, who allegedly said that when she married Harry, they celebrated in South Africa like they did when Mandela was freed. And the lie that baby Archie was almost killed where they were. That was a lie too." Kelly called the Sussexes dishonest when reacting to the paparazzi photos that appeared in the trailer. She said, "I realized that Netflix or the director would have put together the trailer, but Meghan and Harry approved it," insinuating that they would have seen those pictures beforehand and understood that they were being misused. According to Kelly, Meghan picks a very specific incident or event and aggrandizes it to make herself either look like the victim or look like she's way more adored than she actually is. The presenter then brought up several photos used in the series that showed the Duchess crying and said, "I have never taken a photo of myself crying and certainly never released it to the public saying, 'Please feel sorry for me.' They want people to feel sorry for them, which is the most unattractive piece of this couple." So clearly she doesn't believe Meghan and Harry when they spoke about the turmoil they went through before leaving the royal family. Number 4, Holly Willoughby. Speaking about the Sussexes on This Morning Today show, Holly disagreed with Meghan's claim that the royal family is overly formal towards one another, even behind closed doors. She said, "To suggest somebody is a bit cold is a really horrible thing to try and brush away. We don't know Kate, but from what we see of her, the way somebody is with their own children, I think you get a pretty good idea." What she was reacting to was the way that Meghan said that she wore ripped jeans and was barefoot when Prince William and Kate came over for dinner, and how surprised she was by their formalities, because she called herself a hugger. To which Holly said, "I think suggesting that anyone within the royal family isn't a hugger, I don't believe that. We saw in the footage of Prince Charles talking to the kids, being normal. Just because you're posh doesn't mean you can't hug someone. It's crazy." Although she did make it clear that she understood where Harry and Meghan were coming from when they spoke about their desire to have a private life. She said, "What I got from the documentary was that their private life was stepping away from royal duty, but it's not private in the way that we see it, and maybe that's where the confusion comes from. It's the first time I understood, oh, that's what you mean by a private life. It's the opposite of public royal duties." So perhaps Harry and Meghan simply wanted freedom and not necessarily what we would consider privacy. Number 3, Gemma Collins. The reality star said, "I've got to be honest, I really like Meghan and Harry. The only thing I would say is that they do need to be loyal to the family. They shouldn't be airing any sort of dirty laundry in public." In the new clip of Harry and Meghan, the couple makes shocking claims against Prince William, alleging that palace officials were happy to lie to protect his brother, but were never willing to tell the truth to protect him and Meghan. Harry also claimed that the couple faced institutional gaslighting from the family. Aside from these allegations, Gemma took issue with one particular comment that Meghan made in her interview with Oprah Winfrey last year. She simply did not like the fact that she referred to the family as the firm, and said, "I thought that was a bit near the mark. Well, to be honest, I thought, Jesus, you've got some balls. That's the only bit I didn't like, I've got to be honest." But Gemma did acknowledge that the public only get told certain information and might not get to see the whole picture because of the way the documentary was edited together. To sum it up, she said, "Look, I think she's made her mistake and she should have never called the family the firm. But Harry looks happy, and is everyone going to be tuning in to watch it? Yes. And I just think they're not in the royal family now, let them get on with it." Number 2, Dan Wooten. The GB News presenter did not mince words when he tweeted, "For a couple who claim they care about their privacy, in less than half an hour, Harry and Meghan have already shared with the world their private text messages, private photos from their dates, private video diaries, and private clips of their son." He also pointed out the hypocrisy that Harry was using clips of Princess Diana's infamous Panorama interview that William himself has tried so hard to get banned. Dan was especially critical about the moment that Harry said, "Meghan sacrificed everything she ever knew to join me in my world, and then pretty soon after that, I ended up sacrificing everything that I know to join her in her world." Dan said this statement made it sound as though Meghan and Harry had both joined some kind of cult and cut out any family members who challenged them or anyone who disagreed with them. This was one of the most telling quotes of the docuseries, because Harry clearly clearly believes that both he and Meghan gave up certain things to be with each other. She gave up freedom and the ability to live her life how she wanted, and then obviously he ended up giving up his royal duties and separated from his family. Later on, he also brought up the situation with her father Thomas and said, "Of course, it's incredibly sad what happened. She had a father before all of this, and now she doesn't have a father, and I shouldered that, because if Meg wasn't with me, then her dad would still be her dad." And coming in at number 1, Kirsty Alsop. The Channel 4 presenter tweeted, "It's totally okay to leave the family firm, but don't try and crash the share price after you've left. H&M wanted to have their cake and eat it too, and that's not how it works. If you want to be royal, work for it. If you don't, you're welcome to be like the rest of us." Alsop even compared the couple's Netflix venture to an X-rated movie that one might put out there for revenge, implying that they chose to air their grievances with the palace in the most public way possible in order to inflict the most damage. Funnily enough, this wasn't even the first time that she questioned their motives. Back in September, the presenter addressed the public's perception of Meghan and Harry's return to the UK as they were honouring the late Queen Elizabeth II. After they joined William and Kate in a rare reunion, Alsop took the opportunity to respond to the headlines from the event. She pointed out that the couple's treatment of the Queen had been a cause of serious concern for some sections of the British public, and that's why they were not very well liked in the UK. And it seems like Meghan has once again been accused of disrespecting the Queen. In a video clip from the second episode, she was seen laughing uncontrollably as she described how Harry introduced her to his late grandmother. When she curtsied dramatically, many people felt that she was mocking Harry's family traditions and cultural beliefs. So it's no wonder that clip drew a huge amount of controversy.